Bernie, can you hear me real quick?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we do the internet questions, I have a question I have to ask you that I think we've failed as a show for not asking yet. The new roughing the passer penalties in the NFL. Obviously, it was a different time than when you played, but we got to know, what is your take on how soft some of these referees and these calls have gotten in the NFL?
God, do I wish I got these calls back in the day.
God.
You'd still be playing.
I probably wouldn't have learned all the health and wellness stuff, okay, because I wouldn't have been death after 40.
Did you hear what Troy Aikman said on the telecast Monday night?
No.
He said it's time for the competition committee to take off their dresses.
Yeah. Not a great terminology, but I get his point.
Yeah. No, his point is a good one.
Yeah.
And actually, the NFL has said that they're going to take another look at it and constly try to tweak
The
this.
problem is we're always talking about concussions, and so now they've overcorrected.
Yeah, one of the tough things too about it is as I get my helper here, huh, Mike?
I'll do this just for anybody.
Yeah.
You know, though,
he don't help me out like that.
You know what? I think that's an earpiece for the other ear. It's molded to go into his right ear.
Oh,
Well, this is my first time on the job.
Most shows have what's called an A1, which is an audio one tech.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have Mike Polk.
We ain't got no money like that. We trying to.
How's that, Bernie? Does that
I
feel
went
like
to the
it's in
Ohio
there a
School
little
of
better?
Broadcasting.
But if you want to super chat us, maybe we'll make enough money to hire an A1.
Stop that.
There it is.
Listen, everybody hates the rule. I think one of the answers is to be able to replay those calls and say, okay, obviously nothing happened here. Let's move on.
Yeah, you know what? Part of me initially said yes to that.
Yeah.
And then the CTE hadn't overly affected me yet, so I had a complete flashback of the reviewable pass interference calls. Mm-hmm. And if we're reviewing roughing the quarterback, are we going to review it like we reviewed?
They screwed that up. In my opinion,
screw that up.
In my opinion, Bernie, what they should do for replay is there should be a replay official at every stadium. The NFL's making zillions of dollars. They can afford to have an official that's in the booth watching on 4K TVs and immediately could signal down to the referee. He's got 30 seconds to get the call right, maybe 20. If you can't figure it out in that little time, it's not worth changing.
No, they got to call New York, wake the guy up.
Right, it takes forever.
Hey, buddy,
if you were doing it with the guy and it was just like when there's a call wrong, we get it right, whatever the penalty is.
You know
and we
which
correct it.
Isn't that?
best is
you know,
tennis.
as you're saying that, I'm thinking, and I'm probably going to make a smart aleck joke here, but
like
it's like I'm thinking about, don't they have that now with that independent doctor who's watching what happens,
Yeah,
and
that's
if
not
he
going
sees
well.
something,
Right.
you're supposed to stop. And I'm sensitive to this. I talk
Sure.
a little bit on my podcast
Tua
about
thing,
it with the Tua and the Dolphins. I mean, that's who I actually finished my career with.
Right.
Those doctors were my doctors. I see why in the 80s and 90s we have these concussion issues now. It's one thing to see that happen in the late 80s, early 90s, but to have the same people, the same people doing that still to it today, and knowing what I've had to come
And that's the same
through.
staff?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
same
ridiculous.
stuff, same set of doctor network. So it's incredible to me that it's really still happening. And again, even though I'm feeling significantly better than years ago, I mean, there's still ramifications for this stuff.
How many concussions did you have, Bern?
Well, now I say over 100, but if in the old days. In the old days, it's probably more because the only ones you counted in the old days was when you were unconscious.
Yeah, when you sleep.
So,
here.
did I have? We remember the Mason
You used to
Rudolph.
say, "Oh, you got your bell rung."
Oh yeah,
you're
seeing
concussed
started.
now.
Those are subconcussive blows.
Yeah.
But I was probably unconscious like that. Mason Rudolph won a couple years ago, maybe 20 times.
Good
During
God.
NFL games.
Yeah.
And
So
then you got to think about it like this too. He played 4 years of high school. Then you play in college. All of those practices, not to mention getting to the league. So
And they used to hit in practice, too.
And 2-a-days were a real thing. And back then, they wouldn't even give you water sometimes.
We started a career, and again, God bless you, Coach Stellenberger, Coach Shula, 3-a-days and stuff. Yeah, half a glass of water for 3-a-days and 3-hour practices. We're taking salt tablets, giving salt tablets. That's how old we are. Just to really make sure you're dehydrated.
Let's sit in the sauna for 5 hours and then go practice.
I'm surprised. I'm gonna be honest. You probably had more than me, but I've had 13, 14 major surgeries and about 5 or 6 little procedures. But Man, I'm surprised people back then could even walk today or talk today, because it was just savage back then. It was, you know, and you got guys hitting in practices, pads all the time. The salt tablet stuff is you had to earn water. You're like, hey, you're not gonna get it. Now we know, if you, with all the technology and science, you think back and say, wow, I'm happy to just be where I'm at today.
Right. I mean, look at the wham blocks, the KO shots.
Crackbacks.
That's how the league used to promote itself.
We used to say, let's ear hole you. Let's ear hole you. I mean, and be proud of it.
Yeah.
And to the point where.
Did you see the Ricky Williams comments from recently? That he was on a podcast somewhere and he was asked about that, of if the NFL cares. And he started his comments by saying, the NFL cares absolutely not at all about this.
Oh, not one bit. This is all a farce.
To say, and this is what was stunning to me, and I wanted to ask you if you knew this was verifiably true or not. He said the average life expectancy of a former NFL player is 57. Is that true? That seems awfully young.
So it's interesting that you're saying that. So I saw a scary stat that if you played more than 7 years in the NFL, your average life expectancy is 57 or 58 years old.
Okay, so that must be. Now, he didn't qualify it by saying 7
I'm
years.
50. I wear this shirt here, not to promote here The Rock here, but this is to show you why I got these concussions. I played in an era with Lawrence Taylor. This is Michael Kosar. Amazing. This guy was 6'3", 245.
He'd be suspended for a year if he did that today.
I'm almost 6'6". So he's almost 6.5 feet off the ground at 245 pounds. That's about 0.2 seconds away from a ear hole concussion, a couple broken ribs here. I wouldn't have showed it if I didn't complete the pass, though. Okay?
I can see why you want to celebrate that and wear it around.
But I do this, and God bless them, but Michael Kosar, Reggie White, Jerome Brown.
Bruce
I don't
Smith.
want to cry here, but Chris Dolman. These guys all crushed me. They're all dead.
Yeah.
They're all.
Crazy.
Michael's passed. Okay, 57 years old.
No
okay, I've lost so many of my friends. Chris Dolman. Okay, an amazing man that I played against at University of Miami against when he was at Pitt, and then with the Vikings and stuff. And to see, not that they're not only not with us, but the horrible way that they go out. How Chris passed, how Michael passed, how Reggie White. And this is something that, from an awareness standpoint, we're talking about myself and how I got myself somewhat better. Some of the stuff that we need to do as players. The league is not going to help you players.
Let me ask
They're
you
not
this.
going to help
They
us.
only care
We
about not
have to
getting
help
sued.
ourselves.
Bernie, but you are, and I jokingly called you the poster child of this, because of where you were 10 years ago and where you are today. You rattled off no fewer than 10 numbers today. 5 years ago, you're not doing that. You're just not.
Right. He's sharp.
Why aren't you the poster boy? Why aren't you employed by the NFL working with former players and current players on exactly, you did it. How did you do it? Why aren't more people following your lead?
I think that the number one expense for an NFL team is a salary cap. The second expense for an NFL team is injury, grievance, and medical, and that.
That's true.
And we are so old that we are a liability, and they don't want to.
They don't want you to live
They
to
don't
80.
want us. So they want us. And I'm not saying this to be mean, nor to cause. They're waiting for us to die. So we are a liability from their P&L, and I don't believe they want to do any health benefits for us. So us players need to help ourselves.
Were you part of the concussion settlement?
Yeah, amazingly, I did that to create a baseline to find out how set up the league is to make sure we're all denied. We're all denied.
You've never seen a penny from the league.
Oh, God, no. All they do is waste your time sending you around the country to doctors that are part of their network to deny you. Matter of fact, we have some of the best. I'm a trustee at the University of Miami. We have excellent medicine at the University of Miami Medical School. Northeastern Ohio in Cleveland, with the Cleveland Clinic and University Hospital, we have some of the best medicine in Northeastern Ohio. It's amazing to me that when you have to do this stuff, they send you to Chicago, to Kansas City. I flop.
They're sending you guys to doctors that they know are going to deny you.
I mean, sending me to, why I got to fly through 3 stops to go to Kansas City, to stop off in Chicago. And this, again, I ended up having I ended up having a seizure. Besides the concussions and the surgeries, I've had 14 seizures. I've been in a coma twice for 72 and 96 hours. Oh my God. The 4-day one was post one of the NFL running me around like a dog, and I flopped because most of my seizures were in altitude issues with planes. So I flopped in the O'Hare Airport.
Oh my God.
You know, I shouldn't even have been going through Kansas City.
I'm glad he's saying this because there's a lot of people that believe, oh, they see the money that these guys are making now. They made good money back then, but when you want to talk about the health risk and the health bills that they accumulate after football is crazy. And the concussion settlement, you know, people talk about, well, they should be getting money and there's a college concussion settlement. And I know exactly what he's talking about. Because if you go to that concussion settlement, they have a baseline of different things. So the goal is to prove that was either pre-existing or it happened independent of playing football.
Right. Pre-existing,
Yeah,
I graduated college in 2.5 years, and now I can't spell college.
Right.
Chidi Ahanatu is a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and I've had conversations with him about this. He said what the league wanted was the big splash headline, NFL to pay billions for concussion settlement. But he said
now it all sits in an escrow account and somebody's
making it. He said the joke of that is, and the NFL is so big and so powerful that nobody can get access to really get to the bottom line number of how much they have spent of those billions of dollars that they were ordered to spend.
And it's torture to get your own information. When you go to that stuff, I'm so naive, I actually thought that the doctors were checking you out for yourself. I did not realize that it was really the NFL checking you out. And you really can't even get your records without torturous due diligence.
Now, knowing all of this, we all are going to watch Thursday Night Football today, right? Yeah, yes. Everybody is. That's the sad thing. What does that say?
And you know what? The NFL knows that. We're outraged when we hear a player that's 52 shoots himself in the chest so his brain can be sent off to Boston University to be studied for CTE.
Right. I was saying
we're the first ones to flip on the game
and
on
we complain
Thursdays,
about
Saturdays, Sundays.
the light. We complain about the not enough tackling.
Right now, what we're complaining about is the league's gone too far to protect its quarterbacks.
Yep. Yeah, so we're a mess, and this was a good little intervention, so thanks for that.
I actually don't mind sometimes the quarterback hits are a little crazy, but I like offense, so I like that.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Penalties favor the
I'm
offense.
not one of those. I'm not one of those. Oh, they don't even let them touch you anymore. Yeah. I've never been one of those.
Well, but for years the league was marketed as a gladiator, physical. I'm going to try to kill my opponent's sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this for any of the kids who are listening today who should be in school, but you know, it was a kill or be killed.
Oh,
you went out there with the idea of it's okay to kill or be killed because you knew you were trying to do that to me.
Is that mentality different today at a high school level?
It's totally different now.
It is.
It needs to be different.
Have you found that it is? I know it needs to be.
It needs to be, guys, if it isn't. Okay, coaches,
at certain places, it's still.
They tell you, like, we can play St. Ignatius, and there wasn't nothing off limits. We figured out y'all got 50 on offense, 50 on defense. I'm going both ways. We did everything we could to win. That's why when Greg Williams said when they did the bounty thing, I was confused because that was just the culture. You were always trying to injure somebody. People say, like, what do you mean?
And actually, and to Greg Williams and Sean Payton's defense, every team, every coach, every organization at every level at our age did that.
It
doesn't make it right.
But the NFL had to, because it's a PR thing, right? That's the only reason they cared about it.
Now,
we are shocked that this is going on.
Well, now we understand that, you shouldn't probably put your helmet underneath somebody's chin because you can either kill yourself, be paralyzed, or you're not going to be able to walk.
But the science just wasn't there.
Bernie, so this is the payoff question then, and this is what Ricky Williams was talking about on this recent podcast that I saw. The question was, whether you would go back and do it all over again. And Ricky said that, and I have always said, I've asked this question to over 100 former players, and to a man, every one of them has said, yes, I would. But Ricky took a different approach. Ricky's a really cerebral guy.
I love Ricky.
He said, go ask people that are 56. Go ask NFL players that are 56. Well, Bernie, how old are you?
58.
And the life expectancy is 57.
Yeah.
So Now, you
Beating
don't
the
have a
system, man.
life-threating condition right now.
Nice job.
You know you're defying the odds. Every day you
two of
walk-
those seizures, though, I was looking down at myself. So I don't know.
You saw the
I'm on
light.
third
Yeah,
time
that
this
doesn't
time.
count.
Every
Yeah.
day you walk on this earth from here forward, you're defying the average. Knowing the life that it afforded you and everything that you know about the safety and the mental debilitation that a player suffers, you're 19 years old. Are you still going to the University of Miami? Are you still going to make a career in the NFL, or do you do anything differently?
Well, first of all, coming up in Youngstown, Ohio in the 70s when the steel mills and the manufacturing jobs was eerily somewhat similar to today in terms of it wasn't there from an economic perspective and a kind of future perspective. It wasn't there. It's almost why I'm so fixated and committed and passionate about community at our core and revitalizing economically depressed areas like that, because that's kind of how I was as a young kid.
Right.
And the options to get to college, to get a degree, just weren't there unless you played sports. So I kind of needed sports to get my education, to get that opportunity. But now I kind of look at it at 58 years old, and I'm not trying to be a martyr, and I'm not trying to patronize myself, but I almost think that God did that for a reason, and that I was meant to do and learn this and go through the things that I've gone through to be able to talk about it today. And again, I'm trying to say it in a cavalier, calm way, but there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of thoughts going through my head that I really believe need to be told to people, whether it's young kids out there and our guys our age, because we need help, we want help, we don't know where to go. And if we go to certain places, we're getting really bad advice that's actually accelerating our death or amplifying our issues, the pain in our head, the inability to remember. So it's almost like I believe I've been given this gift and
To help others.
of
So
responsibility.
your answer is, yeah, you would do it again.
Yeah, because I feel like I shouldn't be running from this gift I've been given or this issue, because I've been shown a pathway that's not only helped myself, but believe I've been shown a pathway to help myself that I'm supposed to be
Helping
showing and sharing with others.
Have you talked to Jim McMahon recently? How is Jim doing? Because I've had conversations with him about where he's been. His was such a debilitating pain, he was praying to die.
Yeah, so I was with Jim. What day's today? Today's
Thursday.
I was with him last Thursday.
How's he doing?
And he's still on his crutches, had his surgery, and I'm not his doctor. I want to do his hip, but he almost had his leg amputated below his knee. I mean, we have, and again, I got clothes on and stuff, but we have infections that go and affect our extremities, our peripheral nerves. So with CTE, you think, okay, you have the concussion head issues, which unfortunately we absolutely have. That also goes to fingers, extremities, feet, and toes. So if you have infections, cuts on your feet, they tend to be infected. I've had a couple for 4 years with open wounds.
Wow.
Jim's was 2 years, and he almost had to hit his...
Are his migraines any better?
So...
Because he was doing some experimental neck
So
stuff.
we're both doing extremely experimental, progressive stuff to increase blood flow in our extremities. Man. Jim, through his chiropractor, has been able to release tension in the neck to create blood flow and more oxygen, because we're deprived of oxygen and blood flow in our extremities. That accelerates the issues in our concussions. I mean, you saw Tua during the game the other day, up on the when his fingers started kind of going like this. Yeah. Fencing, that's a midbrain traumatic brain disorder.
Yeah.
If you watch, like myself, I can mask it now because I'm cognizant of it because I know I'm on TV right now. If I wasn't when I first started the podcast, I'm not pitching to look at the podcast, but if you look at the podcast and you're a neurologist, look at the first one. I'm doing the same thing too as
Bernie,
doing.
you used to do that a lot more.
All the time.
You used to do that almost as like I always thought it was a nervous.
No,
twitch,
it's a traumatic. It's a traumatic brain. You literally have paralysis in your extremities. So, does it lock up your brain? Yes. Does it lock up your fingers? Does it lock up your toes? Absolutely. Does.
To what he's saying, if you see me, right? So sometimes I hold.
You have to hold something.
You hold my arm or your hand. You hold it because there's it's just it's not a tremor. Sometimes the first time it started happening, you're like, do I have ALS? I was like, this is crazy.
I want to get tested for ALS. I'm yelling.
I said, hold
NFL,
on.
I'm yelling. There's a test out there that they do not want to give to us players that says if you are possibly predisposed for ALS. We have certain signs that we have this stuff. Yet hell will freeze over before the NFL and these doctors will allow us to get any of these type tests. I've been swimming up that stream for 2 years on this.
I made a statement on this show a couple of weeks ago, and Bull, I know you disagreed with me, and I heard from a lot of other folks that disagreed with me, but I have studied the CTE issue fairly closely because of my years at ESPN. It was a front and center issue, and I, for whatever reason, took a particular interest in it. I did a lot of interviews with doctors from Boston University, and they've got the longest ongoing study of CTE on the planet, and they get the brains of former players and study them.
Right.
And
I mean, I was hanging with Dave Durson and Junior Seau when we were
guys that had it
when we were
suicide.
trying to figure out these issues. Now I hadn't come up with my juicing and IV therapy and some of the creative holistic stuff I'm doing at that point. But both of them, you had said it 15 minutes ago, how both Dave and Junior had unfortunately shot themselves in the chest to save their brain for the research.
To that point, 95% of the brains that Boston University has studied of former NFL players
it's for
have
sure.
had CTE.
Yeah.
So my point was that doctors are furiously working on a test where they can detect the enzyme that is present in the brain that right now can only be detected with physical inspection. If they get that test and they can test everybody in the NFL, what happens to the NFL if this Boston University study and those numbers are extrapolated to current day players and 75 or 80% of these players today have CTE? What happens?
Well, I'm to the point of we have it. Guys, you have it. We have it. And I'm more fixated on what do I do about it to
but how does the
alleviate.
NFL move forward knowing that their sport is turning all of their competitors into
It's tough for me.
what we've seen?
It's truthfully tough for me to really think about helping or thinking how they move forward since
You're not worried about them.
They're really waiting for us to die. I mean, it sounds harsh and that, but it's really true. We drop off the radar screen. That's less of a liability. It's less of a person telling the truth about the death that's in our head.
Knowing all that, though, how do you manage to still watch this game and enjoy watching football and watching the NFL product, knowing what they've done?
I'm not sure I enjoy it, but I actually watch it to see. Now I watch these games to see what doctors and what people are still involved from when they were screwing me. Can you still enjoy the game to watch the game as the sport that you played and loved at one point? I'm not sure I enjoy it as much. No, you don't. You can't. Okay.
But it's understandable. Why?
I totally get it. Of course. So you're watching a Browns game. You're watching this Browns game this Sunday. What's going through your head while you're watching the game?
You know, when I do watch the game, I try to look at it from the analytical X's and O's perspective. I still can't help but throw myself into what should I be doing as the QB. So I put myself in Jacoby's situation with that. And how do you feel about people enjoying this sport, knowing what you have been through and your generation of football players been through and what they continue to go through? How does that make you feel about us as fans and watching this and celebrating and enjoying it? I'd imagine I might have a hard time being cool with that. I don't have a hard time being cool with it, but there are times, and again, I was at a charity event last Saturday. And one of the things I really love music, and there's a cool thing for traumatic brain injuries, which I have, what we're doing at the University of Miami, where music therapy helps in the cognitive rehabilitation of your brain. That being said, I used to listen to heavy AC/DC before every game I played. Okay, listening to AC/DC at the monsterly high levels right now sends your head. Loud music and loud noises being at a game actually sends your head into somewhat of a dark place. I don't know how you get with it, but it makes it really tough from that. So really, from that perspective of how do you handle yourself and cope with it in environments now where it starts happening to you. You start actually freezing up, getting partial paralysis to where your fingers aren't moving, your extremities aren't moving. So like in those games, actually, I'm sometimes just trying to get by, because if you have an episode, which I had the other night with a really loud music, and I'm not even drinking and stuff anymore, so you can't even say that. So it ends up being almost a paralysis, to where you could talk to, you could talk to me, but no words are coming out. Your fingers may not move, your feet may not move, and you just gotta figure out how to get around that when you're at the game and they're gonna attack you, or you're out doing something. It's a really tricky thing, and that's kind of where back to the responsibility of. It's just not me going through this and trying to deal with it. There's lots of us guys, and a lot of us guys in our mid-50s, we have a hard time admitting that we're frail. Yeah. That we have these, because we're still trying to pretend we're cool.
Well, you talked about your upbringing,
I'm a tough guy.
Those practices you went through that you just talked about, where you had to prove your masculinity, that's still ingrained in you from back then, I'm sure, and you're still probably fighting that.
Yes.
That makes total sense. It's great that you're an advocate for the cause, though, for everybody.
Keep
it
fighting
really
that
is.
fight, because anybody that knew you 10 years ago and can look at you now,
he's looking good, man.
it's the most remarkable turnaround, because usually it's degenerative and it always goes downhill. I've never seen a player on a decline like that and somehow, some way, miraculously stop it and come back the other way. You look 15 years younger. Your mind is just as sharp as it was when you were 23 years old dissecting NFL defenses. Everybody that knew the game and covered it for a lifetime back then would say of Bernie Kozar, it's impossible for a guy with his physical attributes to succeed in the NFL unless he's Mensa genius smart between the ears. And you're just as sharp today as you were then.
Thanks, bro.
And I'm glad you are. It's great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see.
Are they going to win Sunday?
I felt really good about it. I felt really good about it a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
we need to really implement this. We need to really implement some of these changes defensively to get after it, because Bill will be ready for that.
Screw Bill Belichick. Let's kick his ass.
Joe Woods, if you're listening, bring some of that pressure, dog.
Yeah, dial it up. Your podcast. Tell people how they can see it.
Yeah, the Bernie Kosar Show with Hanford Dixon, Top Dog on the Big Play Network.
I watch it. It's great.
It's great.
I watch it. I'm already subscribed. You can check it out on YouTube. I saw it the other day.
And it's great. It's great, Hanford Dixon. It's great seeing all of the guys because that was my era, the late 80s, early 90s. It's great seeing Met is doing a great job, and Hanford and you, and just anytime I see you guys together, especially. And we have Leroy on every week.
Yeah, I love Leroy. Yeah.
Anything you'd like to say to Leroy right now that we're going to clip and play it when he's on the show next week?
Well, I don't want to compliment Leroy too much, but Leroy was one of the best pass catchers ever. Okay,
really?
And we had such a cool routine during our games, because I would try to act like I was going to run towards the line of scrimmage. Now, we all know I was slow and all know I'm not going to run.
What?
But Leroy and me had such a good routine where he'd call my name, he would fake like he's blocking, but he'd always try to get open. So Leroy had some of the most creative throwing catches and touchdowns, and he's so friggin' resourceful out on the field.
He's a smart guy, too.
He is super smart. I hate sucking up with all these compliments. I really want to
Leroy,
bust
don't get
his
a big
chops.
head.
Yeah, don't get a big cranium.
It's too
on
late.
it.
You remember the night that we were all out at Johnny's? There was a big group of us, and he was trying to airdrop the picture. The pictures.
Yeah, we're a little technically challenged.
And he was sending them to. There was a lady sitting at the table next to us. Her name was Jane, and he kept sending them to Jane's iPhone.
Why do I have pictures
and
of Bernie?
all of us in the group were getting the pictures but me. And finally, I saw this older woman stand up and say, "Why is someone sending me pictures of Bernie Kozar and Leroy Horde and a bunch of other strangers?" Jane's iPhone. He couldn't read without
at
his
least they were
glasses.
appropriate.
Yeah, could have been way worse. Could have been way
Bernie,
worse.
it's always
Bernie,
a
we
pleasure
love
to
you,
see
buddy.
Great Bernie Kozar.
Great having you.
The one and only 19. No one should ever wear that number ever again.
That was disgusting. Josh Rose
I don't know
wearing
why
19.
it's not. I can't figure out why they haven't
Retire
done
that,
the right
man.
thing by you and put your name up there.
Come on
and
now.
kill that number forever. he is and will always be my version of the Cleveland Browns. Bernie, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. No Guardians game tonight, so we'll preview Game 2 again tomorrow. We're on a 22-hour break. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow.